You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host, Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we're going to talk about shows that we should never forget because they were gone too soon. But before we do that, let's meet our cast for this week. So starting off, we have the mayor of Chicken Town herself, Felicity. How are you doing, Felicity?
Hi, Nathan. I'm doing good, and I always have a good time on this podcast. Always interesting discussions, so I'm happy to be back.
Felicity, what's been going on for you since the last time you were on?
Well, I feel like it was pretty recently that we last recorded. So
yeah, I think we talked about Krull back in September.
Yeah, who knows in timey-wimey reality how far apart these episodes will be. Yeah. Just kind of getting ready for the holidays. And Thanksgiving weekend is when we put our Christmas tree up. So it's going to be pretty festive around here. We have a lot of chicken ornaments, as of course, being Chicken Town. And, we recently took a trip to Seattle, where neither of us had been before, and had a nice time. It was a nice little trip to celebrate our anniversary.
Oh, nice. Nice. Was there anything in particular, or was it just like Seattle is just like on your bucket list of just a place to go, or there was like a particular site you were looking for?
There were particular things we wanted to do, again, chicken related. Seattle is the home of Archie McPhee, which is a well-known novelty company. They have a catalog, but they have their storefront in Seattle, and that's where the original rubber chicken, after which Chicken Town is named, came from.
Okay.
So that was and then there's a series of podcasts and books by a particular author that takes place in the Pacific Northwest. So that was some of the interest for me. And then finally, outside of Seattle itself, we visited the town of Roslyn, Washington, where Northern Exposure was actually filmed, even though that was set in Alaska.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, no, I didn't realize that they actually filmed it in Washington. I assumed it was filmed in Alaska, so that's cool.
Yeah, just about an hour east of Seattle. A quiet little town, but it was cool to be there, and we stayed there overnight.
Nice. Yeah, of course, I laughed at you going to see like the birthplace of rubber chickens, but it's like, yeah. I would totally go to Texas to go to the Dr. Pepper Museum if I, had the fun. So, I mean, it's not really that strange. So.
No, and I have been to the world of Coca-Cola in Atlanta, so.
Okay, there you go. Well, it's good to have you back on the show, Felicity.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
All right, next up, coming up at us from Level 7 is Paige. How are you doing, Paige?
Hi, I'm so glad to be back here. Yay. And this topic that we're going to be talking about, this is near and dear to me because most of the things I watch don't last long.
Right. I know. So it's funny because I was talking with Felicity a few days ago and she was like, oh, like, it's hard to remember these shows, but I'm like, no, like for me, it's like after, 40 some years of like televisual viewing, like I like there are so many. I can go all the way back to the 80s of shows that I'm like, why did you cancel it? I want this to continue. So
yeah.
Like
when you brought this one up, I was like, okay, wait, maybe I can think of some. And then I just looked at like my DVD collection of like volume 1 of like certain shows.
Right.
Like
I'd have to do no research on this topic.
Yeah.
It's like they're just like sometimes I might like make a list or something, like if I'm doing like we're gonna discuss shows from a particular decade or something where I'm like, because sometimes I get fuzzy on was this like a 2000s or a 90s, when did it actually start, kind of stuff, but like with this I'm like, oh yeah, like I just, the more I think about it, the more pop into my head of it. Just so it's fine if people take ones that I intended to talk about because I can just pick another one that's going through my head. So
exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool. And yeah, I mean, it's been like a couple of months since you were on too. I think Fantastic
Hmm.
Four was the last one we talked about.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Yeah.
yeah, what's going on for you, Paige?
Yep, again, just getting ready for the holidays. I learned a life hack, 42 years in existence, that if you have any points stocked up on your credit card, just get a gift card to Target or Walmart or Amazon or whatever you need to actually get through the holidays, for holiday dinner planning, especially this year. Just cash in those points and eat. Um, that's that's been my year so far. And then I'm the one person in our household that has like any sort of nostalgia for Christmas. Like I'm not even like super religious or anything anymore. I it's just a special time of the year for me. So I'm gonna repurpose it. I'm gonna reclaim it. This year, December, in the Branson household is going to be all about celebrating the Yule cat, the giant Norwegian forest cats that will come by your house. And if you've been bad or you didn't get clothes this year, specifically socks usually, the cat's going to eat you. So I'm going to celebrate the Yule cat this year because I always get socks for Christmas anyway from people.
My cat isn't even anything special, and I'm pretty sure that if I'm ever like paralyzed and can't move, that she would eat me. So
Yeah. Absolutely. With my three idiots that I live with,
yeah, it's
I
like
am out of here. The
anytime
moment
she
something goes
licks
wrong.
me, I'm like, oh, is this their taste test? Are you like seeing like how
Just
is he?
making sure I'm tender. I'm all right.
That's
That's fine.
right.
So I will honor the Yule cat this year in honor of like the pact that I have between me and my cats of like we're still good, right?
How many cats do you have?
Three.
Oh, nice.
I have Kinga, who's named after a Mystery Science Theater 3000
Hmm.
character. We have Isun, who's named after a character from Okami, a really awesome video game. And our newest member is Biscuits, who just walked in our house one day and was like, I live here now. And we were like, I guess you do live here.
I had a cat like that once. That was our first cat that Beth and I had together. So yeah, it
Aw.
walked into our apartment. We had a first floor apartment. Just walked into our apartment. Had clearly been owned at some point in the past. And like
Mm-hmm.
Fayetteville, North Carolina is awful for that because it's the biggest army base in the U.S. And when the people are deployed, they just let their
They
animals
leave
go.
their pets.
There's a
Just,
huge stray problem there. So yeah, that cat was just like empty,
mhm.
like warm open house or warm open apartment. I'm going in, and so
Exactly.
he was so happy to be there. So yeah, it was great. But that is very cool, Paige. I'm glad to have you back on the show.
I am so happy to be here.
All right, next up is our resident time lady, and that is Annie. How are you doing, Annie?
I am great, thank you.
You're welcome. And so, what's been going on for you since the last time you were on the show?
Um, well, so my dog had a little health scare.
Mm.
Speaking of animals and pets, she's 13 years old. She's a black lab mix, so we rushed her to the vet, but thankfully it was something that was gross but not serious. So the vet took care of it, and she's feeling much better.
Well, that is definitely good to hear.
Yes. Other than that, yeah, had a little, little sickness in the house, but I think we're through that, so that's good. I don't want sickness where we're going to Chicago TARDIS, so we need to get rid of all the ickies in the house.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was finally able to influence somebody to go to Chicago TARDIS because I'm always telling people to come, but of course, because it falls right after Thanksgiving, like nobody ever wants to go,
Right.
and so like I was glad that, even though you've been before, you weren't going to go this year, and I was able to convince you to come, so I
That
feel
is
like I've
true.
done
We
my
were we
job.
were gonna skip this year, but yeah, you know what? I guess it wouldn't take much to make me cave because it's a great time. So I'm very glad we're going.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you or it's good to have you back on the show.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. And finally, we have our resident unit soldier, and that is Assad. How are you doing, Assad?
Pretty good. All well. Thanks for squeezing me in at the last minute. I had like a half marathon this morning. I wasn't sure how I'd be feeling after that, but I
Oh,
got
okay.
home and I said, I feel okay, so I can do this.
Well,
So
you're doing
here we
better
are.
than I would be after a half marathon, so that's good.
I may crash later.
Okay, yeah, I understand. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd expected, because you had said that your schedule was mostly free, that you would be able to join us, and then when you said
Yeah,
that you had a conflict on Sunday,
this was
I was
just the
like,
one.
oh,
This was just the one time in that
yeah.
whole range that you had given us. That was a conflict. And it's only because if it had been later in the evening, also I would have said sure.
Well, yeah,
fine.
no, this
So,
worked out for other
oh
schedules,
yeah,
so
no,
that's
of
why,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what's been going on for you, Assad? It's been several months, I think, since the last time you were on.
Yeah, all been going well. Did a performance of Mousetrap. Went home to Pakistan for a couple of weeks, and looking forward to Chicago TARDIS myself. So
Yeah.
just 3 panels this year, so it's going to be a relatively light one.
I think I have 13. I mean, if you count the 3 interviews, it's 13. So it's probably 10 panels and the 3 interviews that I'm doing.
Yeah. Didn't get into the 2 I really wanted to, so maybe next time.
Yeah, that is always frustrating to me too, especially when it's one that I suggested to them, and then it's like, but you didn't put me on the panel. That was my suggestion.
Yes. They have to give you some free time as well.
That's right.
So,
yeah, I wish I, though, was able to rank the priority so that, it's like, I would have dropped that one, but I would rather have this one,
right.
But obviously I didn't, don't get a chance to tell them what, But yeah, anyway. But yeah, it's good to have you back on the show, Assad.
It's good to be back.
All right, next up, you know what time it is. It's time for our 5-minute controversy. So for those joining us for the first time, the 5-minute controversy is a way to loosen us up before we talk about our main topic, and it's also a way to give you some insight into how we feel about something going on in the geekosphere. So this one was a little hard because I was working to find a topic that everyone could comment on, because I have other topics banked up, but I was like, for instance, well, Felicity doesn't do Star Trek, so I had like 2 Star Trek topics, but I was like, well, Felicity won't be able to comment on that at all. So I tried to find something that was general enough that everybody could talk about. And of course, that was before Assad came on, so I don't know if Assad's going to be able to comment on this one, but we'll see. So, the DCU, of course, debuted this year with Superman. One of the things that James Gunn has said in an interview was that he's thinking of doing 2 different spin-off TV shows from Superman, one being a Mr. Terrific spin-off and the other being a Jimmy Olsen spin-off. Now, when I originally conceived of this controversy, there was a lot of stuff going on as far as articles being reported about that Jimmy Olsen show. Now, James Gunn has said that he's debunked the name that people have been saying, which was DC Crimes, which, of course, sounds like an awful name, so I'm glad that that's not true. He didn't debunk the other reporting, but either way, whatever's being reported is suspect, if nothing else. But still, the idea of him doing a Jimmy Olsen spin-off TV show is still something that he has said before as something that he's thinking about. And I'm just curious because he's also said he only wants the DCU to do 1 television show a year. Of course, this year it was Peacemaker season 2. Next year is going to be Lanterns. And so my question is, do you feel like a Jimmy Olsen show, if they're only doing 1 show a year, is a good use of time for the DCU being a universe that encompasses all of DC Comics characters? So let's start with you on this one, Paige, since I see you nodding quite a bit.
Yeah, I was when you told me about this topic, you're right, because I immediately had an opinion. I love the Superman movie that came out this year. I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was hopeful. I loved it. I did love the interactions with Jimmy and Eve. And Eve specifically. I love Eve so much. She's such an interesting, weird character that's like not really bad, not really good. And then there's like Jimmy suddenly having all this swag with, let's say, all of Metropolis. So I was like, all right, that's interesting. Interesting spins, awesome. To think about having possibly just Jimmy for an entire, like, maybe 6 episode, 12 episode run, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that completely. Like, it was an interesting side thing, which is like, it was cool, but I don't know. And it's no offense to the actor. It's just, there's a lot of material that they're going to have to generate out of thin air to make this good and to also like incorporate it into the larger whole. I would like Eve to also be there. I want to find out what's going on with her. So that would be cool. But I don't think I'll get my wish. So I'm not sure it can really sustain itself.
Okay. Annie?
Yeah, I've got some mixed feelings on this one, actually. As I was looking into it, like you said, I was kind of having a hard time finding out what's been confirmed. So that was a little bit of the complication. But also, and this is no offense against the actor either, but well, I think he did a fine fine job in the part. He wasn't really my favorite Jimmy Olsen. And I was trying to picture him carrying a TV series. I don't know. And then just the character himself, Jimmy Olsen. Yeah, I'm just, I'm not sure either about him carrying an entire series. Maybe a mini series would do a little better. I'd like to hear a little bit more about what they have planned and how they plan on doing it before I really say yay or nay on that one. But yeah, I definitely have some hesitation there.
Okay. Assad, did you see the Superman film earlier this year?
I did, and I really enjoyed it. But the first I heard about this show was maybe an hour ago when you mentioned it, that this was going to be here.
Yeah, so Assad, what do you think about that?
I'll say that Jimmy Olsen in the movie was a bit of I did not like his character as such. And especially I thought he was very manipulative and all dismissive towards Eve. So that was really a bit of a down thing. The show itself, just because he's a reporter and depending upon how many other characters and all they can bring in, characters and actors, it could have potential in exploring different aspects of the DC universe as a reporter again, depending on what he does. And it's always possible that there was a very entertaining miniseries, Who Killed Jimmy Olsen, by Matt Fraction that came out some years back. And if you haven't read it, it's a hoot. And they could well be basing some or all of it on that, and which would be, I would enjoy that. So I think this is definitely one that I guess I'm indifferent to how it's going to be. But it could have potential.
Okay. Felicity?
Well, similarly, I didn't hear about this until you told me. And I also didn't know that there were plans to only be one TV series at a time. Other than that, I'm pretty much on board for anything James Gunn wants to do. Universe. I think it would be better if this were like an ensemble show, and he has kind of proven his talent at that with Peacemaker, which was really a lot about all the characters and how they work together. So I would be open to a show that's kind of more like Daily Planet focused. And it doesn't sound like anyone else has prior experience with this actor, Skylar Gisondo. Yeah. He was in The Mighty Gemstones, and while he wasn't always a major character in that, he was a pretty major character in the first season, and I think he's very good. So I am kindly disposed toward him and would, again, not sure if he can carry a show, but he is a really strong ensemble actor, and so I feel like I'm a little more open to it. But I don't want to waste a slot on this when there's more interesting things that James Gunn could bring us. Although I'm not, honestly, super thrilled about Lanterns if it's based around Guy Gardner's character.
It's not, but it's based on Jon Stewart.
Okay, well yeah. Again, I haven't really.
And Hal Jordan is going to feature prominently. Guy Gardner is meant to guest star, but he is not the main. It's Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart is what Lanterns is about.
Then that kind of erases my my concerns on that, but I want him to focus on getting us moving the story of the DC universe along. But if there's room for Jimmy Olsen, I would definitely watch it.
So I'm kind of, I think, a little more in line with Assad. Although I felt like Superman was mostly a success for me, Jimmy Olsen was one of the few things that I really did not like about that movie. I feel like this idea of Jimmy just all the women throwing themselves. It's not just Eve. We see women in the background of the Daily Planet all oh, hee, hee, pointing and laughing and everything. But he seems completely disgusted by all the attention. I don't know what they're going. It seems and especially knowing how crass and insensitive Gunn is, it seems like it's gonna be like a Jimmy's gay joke or something like that at some point. And it's just I don't feel like we need to go there. And even though I do feel like Gunn kind of elevated himself above his normal level for Superman, I don't tend to like Gunn's humor in the first place. So, it's one of those things where it's like when we're only going to get one shot a year at a show. And when you think about how many characters are in the DC universe, I'm like, do we really need to waste time on Jimmy? Because especially with them, Gunn originally put out a plan that showed a lot of characters, and now it seems like he's turning inwards, probably because Warner Brothers is putting pressure on him, where it seems like he's focusing on the next movies are going to be like their own version of Batman and a Wonder Woman are kind of like the two things that he's focusing on right now, where it's like, I feel like the TV shows are where they can highlight some of the lesser known characters. He promised a Booster Gold series originally, which I would be very interested in, which I think actually for Gunn's predilections would be a perfect character for, them to do, because he, is definitely more into the comedic bend. And so, I would like that. Even the Amazons one that they teased, or any of that kind of stuff, like, give us something a little different, like with the TV stuff. Don't just focus back on the Superman stuff, because you're already doing kind of a spin-off sequel on that, and let the films sort of handle that, and give us more. Like, I like Lanterns because that's going to give us a cosmic side to the DCU that we're not seeing yet, and so that's a good direction to go. But I would much rather they spent the time like diversifying and spreading out more, rather than just kind of being very incestuous with what they've already established, because they're going to hit the problem Marvel's hitting now, where it's like you've established too many characters but you're not progressing any of them, and then it's going to become frustrating. So I get that Gunn wants to control things better by leaving it at 2 movies a year and 1 show a year, but you gotta move things forward, Like, you can't just keep everything back on Superman and his related characters. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely, it's not. When I understood Mr. Terrific as a spinoff show. When I heard that was another one he was toying with, I was like, okay, I can see that, and that gives us the Justice Gang and all that stuff, and you can give us more with that there. But yeah, Jimmy, I don't want to spend the time on a Jimmy show. But all right, so yeah, we had a little bit of a spectrum of opinions here, which I always like with a 5-minute controversy. But yeah, now we're going to talk about shows that we're disappointed were gone too soon. But before we do that, we're going to pause for a promo from another fine podcast.
Tune in to the Dragon Con Report podcast, your ultimate destination for all things Dragon Con.
Join us each month as we dive into our home away from home and cover the world of con fandom, cosplay, gaming, and more.
With guests each show, behind-the-scenes insights, tips and tricks, and the latest updates on this year's convention.
Whether you're a seasoned attendee or a first-time explorer,
the Dragon Con Report is your passport to the ultimate geek experience.
Join us and let your inner dragon roar.
And we're back. And some of you who have been following the show for a while may remember that we did this topic before, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, where we did the Gone Too Soon episode. But there are so many shows that are that were canceled too soon that we can do another round of these, and we can probably even someday do another round again, because there's just that many. And in fact, several of the ones that were mentioned in our first episode, I had never even heard of until they were brought up. Greg the Bunny comes to mind, where that's a show I'd never even heard of until Eric brought it up. Like there will probably be shows that I'm not even thinking of that come out today. But to establish the rules again, the rule is, and I get that this is arbitrary, it can't have lasted more than 2 seasons. I feel like if a show lasts more than 2 seasons, you had your shot. Like, if you're a 3-season show or more, yeah, you personally might feel that show should have gone on for 6, 7, 8 seasons, whatever. But I feel like the show had its shot. Whereas 1 season, maybe 2 seasons, we can feel like maybe that's, maybe the network didn't really give it a chance. We've all seen those shows, like Star Trek The Next Generation, famously. First 2 seasons are awful. 3rd season, suddenly it became amazing, and that's what everybody remembers is 3rd season on. So, we've all seen those shows. And to Paige's whole thing is on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. first season, not really good. But, second season, it was good. And then from there on, it was good. So, to start us off, Assad, why don't you mention a show that you feel like was gone too soon?
Okay, no, this might be relatively obscure, but I'm going to talk about the tripods. BBC
I've heard of
adaptation.
it, but I've never seen it.
BBC adaptation of the John Christopher novels. It was a co-production with Australia. It was in 84 and 85. Some of this is a little bit of nostalgia because I saw it while I was in Pakistan and didn't get all that many sci-fi shows there. But it was somehow recently I've started reading more podcasts, reading more books about it. And now in retrospect, they put a lot of effort into it. It was surprisingly ambitious. I mean, you're talking about the BBC in 84 and, so they had a lot of, when you read about it, they did a lot of stuff to make the tripods work on screen, and they work surprisingly well. And especially in the second season, there's a lot of model work, a lot of effects work that is really, really fantastic. And this is unfortunately, and so there's a trilogy, and they adapted the first two books, and then they never adapted the third book. And we're talking about the BBC in 1985. So this comes back to Michael Grade. So, and his crusade against science fiction. And it is incredibly frustrating to watch them, and, because it ends on a cliffhanger, and, it was, that's probably the one that's dearest to my heart about.
Yeah, the sad thing was I didn't learn about that series until I was living in South Carolina, and South Carolina public television, I feel like, was the same as if Michael Grade was running it, because South Carolina was one of the first places to drop Doctor Who. By 1990, by the time I lived there, when Doctor Who had only been off in England for 1 year, they were already not showing Doctor Who in South Carolina, whereas Florida, where I came from, showed it until 95. Georgia, which was next door, played it until 95 or 96. I actually got my dad to buy a big antenna and put it on top of the house so we could get the PBS from Georgia so I could continue watching Doctor Who. But that's how bad South Carolina was. So yeah, no, we didn't get any British science fiction in South Carolina, so I never did get a chance to watch it. Do you know if it's on BritBox?
That's the problem. One of the issues that it's very hard to find, and it's not been streaming on BritBox. It is one of those shows, just like Blake 7 for a while was all on YouTube. So you can find it on YouTube, but there are random episodes that are missing. I think maybe the first, the season finale of the first season is not on. They've got and one or two random episodes from the second season are not there. And I don't know why, but most of the rest of the show is there. So that also, I don't know if it was streaming somewhere, there might be a chance for people to rediscover it, and although again they'd be in for some frustration at the end of it. So it is on YouTube. So
I should check BritBox to see if it's on BritBox, because I'll watch it if it's on BritBox, because I have a.
I really loved this series as well.
First season is much slower, but they had to stretch things out a little bit, and there's a whole interlude where they're at a French chateau for 2 or 3 episodes that everybody is like, oh fuck, when are they going to move on? But it works for me.
Right. So it's a sequel to War of the Worlds, right? So people listening to this who don't know what the Tripods is, it's a sequel to War of the Worlds, right?
Well, no. It's not connected to War of the Worlds at all.
Oh, okay.
Except it has tripods.
Oh, okay. But, I thought it was a sequel to War of the Worlds.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's based on a trilogy of books, which I did read in school, at least the first one, which is called The White Mountains. Author is John Christopher. And other than the tripods and the tripods themselves and it being kind of a post-apocalyptic scenario, it doesn't bear any other resemblance. I thought they showed it on one of the channels that showed Doctor Who in my area. And I really liked the adaptation. The casting is great. And they really do some interesting things in the second season with the realization of the aliens, because I had trouble picturing them in my head when I read the book. But I think they did a really nice job with that. And, I'm sure it looks dated at this point. And I was also very disappointed they didn't adapt the third book, because the second book doesn't really end on the cliffhanger that the series did. So I wanted to see what they did resolve that.
Yeah. And it really doesn't look bad even if you watch it now. But again, you're probably going to be watching it on a computer screen or something if you're watching it on YouTube. But some of the effects shots and the composition of everything that they put together is still holds up really well. So it was a really impressive
from the BBC
as well.
80s?
Yeah. I know.
They actually gave it a budget, huh?
No, even then the budget,
not the $50 a month that Doctor Who was getting.
Well, if you read about it, I mean, once you start looking, because they had to use, I guess the BBC had a very sophisticated computer to do their weather reports. So at night they had to go and use that computer and it's cost so much to do any of the animation of showing the tripods walking that they were kind of limited to, I don't know, like 10, 12 seconds an episode where they could actually do that. So they would have to have tripod-free episodes so that they could maybe have them for a longer time in other episodes. So, yeah.
I also want to call attention to the fact that these books are my first encounter with the poem Ozymandias. In fact, there's a character named Ozymandias who the main characters meet. He's kind of a famous rebel that they learn about. And so, of course, Ozymandias has gone on to be very culturally significant in Watchmen and other places.
All right. Anyone else have anything to add about the tribe? Did either of you, Annie or Paige, see this show?
I never did. That was probably our public our PBS channel actually did show a lot of British television when I was growing up, when I was little and in the 90s. That was my sweet spot of hitting Faulty Towers and Red Dwarf, and they also had Red Green mixed in too, which gave me the Canadian love. But it was just a whole block of really interesting stuff on Saturday night, and that was where I was. But they didn't show that. So that might have been right before when they switched over to more British comedy and then going into sci-fi, and then they would randomly show Mystery Science Theater 3000 sometimes, which is cool. So I never got to experience it, unfortunately. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds amazing, but it's the same situation. My PBS channel didn't play that one. We got Red Dwarf and Doctor Who, and as you said, some of the comedies and things, but we never got that one, which is a shame. It sounds great. I'd like to see it sometime.
Yeah, I'm so envious of everybody, because even when I lived in Florida, I only got Doctor Who. I didn't get Blake Seven or Red Dwarf. I had to find those things on my own. So, yeah, and of course in South Carolina, none of that. So, yeah. Anyway, but Felicity, what's a show that you would like to bring up?
I would like to talk about Dollhouse, which is sort of the forgotten Joss Whedon show. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Joss Whedon. I never got into Buffy or Angel. I did eventually get into Firefly once I saw it in the order it was meant to be seen in, but I wasn't a really gung-ho fan of that. I appreciate it.
I often say Firefly was a show with a lot of potential, but people saying it was the greatest science fiction show of all time, I just looked at him like, you are insane. You can't compare that to shows that lasted 10, years, like Stargate or Doctor Who or even all the various Star Treks. I'm like, you can't. It's 15 episodes.
I'm always afraid to express that opinion sometimes.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yes. People can get rabid. Yes. Oh, sorry.
But Dollhouse, I think, was really ahead of its time. I've seen echoes of it, and the main character is called Echo, so that's a bit of an in-joke. In Westworld, the HBO series, there was some interesting parallels between the robots, for want of a better word, in Westworld, and the dolls, or actives, as they're called in Dollhouse. And then more recently with Severance, not only is there kind of very similar process going on, but one of the actresses, Lockman, who was one of my favorite performers in Dollhouse, is a major character in Severance as well, and has a not dissimilar storyline. So I was interested. I was excited when I saw her in the show because I liked her so much in Dollhouse, and then her significance only grew as the series went on. So Eliza Dushku is the star of this, and I think she's good, but I think that some of the other actors really outshine her. And the concept of the show is there's a corporation called Rossum, which is named after Rossum's Universal Robots. The first was a play that was supposedly the first use of the robot. And this company caters to very wealthy clients who need or want a person to play a particular role in their life, usually like a short-term sort of thing. But you could order a doll, to be your escort basically at a party, or a doll to be a hostage negotiator, which happens to the first episode, which I just rewatched. And people sign up for the most part to a 5-year contract with this company, and their original personality is wiped and stored. And basically they receive an imprint of a new personality for each assignment that they go on. And the dolls are all named by the phonetic alphabet. So we have Echo, we have Alpha, who's a mysterious doll who went rogue. You have Sierra and Victor and November are some of the other main characters. Again, Deacon Lockman plays Sierra. She really stands out, as does Enver Jokej, who plays Victor. And Camo Panikit from Battlestar Galactica, one of the major characters as well. And someone who's become one of my favorite actors, Harry Lennox, is in it. He was in the Joss Whedon, the Zack Snyder DC verse as the guy who turns out to be Martian Manhunter. But I find him just I could just basically just stare at his face all the time because he's just a really looking person, and I've always liked his performances. So this is the show that people say you got to wait till you get to the 5th or 6th episode, which happens to have Patton Oswalt in it. I disagree. I think that from the first episode on, I think the first 2 episodes are actually a really great introduction. You kind of start in the present with the first episode. The second episode gives you a bit of a flashback as to how Boyd, who was Harry Lennox's character, became the handler for Echo, who is Eliza Dushku's character. And then there's I think the third episode is the pop star episode. I think that's the one that most people turn it off at that point. It's a little bit dumb. Each season has an episode or 2 that are not quite up to par, but there's also there's a continuing story. Camo Panikit's character is actually, he's got a tip that this dollhouse exists, and he's trying to investigate what's going on. There are kind of sinister forces at work, including the lost doll Alpha. And at the end of the first season, because they didn't think they were going to second, they kind of jump forward to a post-apocalyptic future where the dollhouse or Rossum itself has precipitated some sort of event that has caused a lot of havoc, and they revisit that in the second season and series finale. I think that was, I understand why they did it. I think that was a little bit of a mistake because it forces their hand in some ways in the second season with some events that have to happen. And particularly, they do something with a particular character that I felt I really didn't agree with, kind of along the lines of some of the characters who wind up being Cylons in Battlestar Galactica, in like the big reveal late in the series. There's a heel turn that I did not buy, but I could be biased just because I like that actor and that character so much. I rewatched the pilot yesterday, and it made me really excited to watch the rest again. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. I happen to have the DVD box set. But I think, especially with the kind of concept of identity and what it means to be a person, that's something that just always fascinates me in science fiction, and why I like shows like Severance so much. So I think this is definitely worth a look, even if you don't particularly like Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I was never part of the cult of Whedon. I did not like Buffy. I did actually like Angel. A friend of mine said, look, even if you don't like Buffy, you should give Angel a try. Angel was a much darker show, which appealed to me. a lot of the sort of faux teen speak from Buffy really annoyed me, and I just felt like the triviality of a lot of their lives. But the idea of a character whose life really is like constantly horrendous and just wants to sit in a dark room and brood all day, I was like, I am in. I like this guy. Like. Angel spoke to me on a different level, so I did actually watch Angel. Never saw Dollhouse. Of course, I've seen Firefly, like I mentioned, but I've never felt like, oh my god, he's the greatest writer of all time, like the true believer Whedonites. Anyone else see Dollhouse? Anything to add?
I did see Dollhouse when it was originally airing, and I think I only saw the first season of it, and I liked it. I was definitely in that correct age group to be all in on everything Whedon, and I really liked Buffy growing up. I did not think that Whedon was the best writer ever. I never took it that far. It was just like, oh, that's cool. And I was also the person that also liked Angel better because it was darker, because it was more mature, and like it moved out of the high school setting that me actually being in high school at the time, I was already tired of. So
it's
like
funny when we talked about shows of the 90s, somebody was on, she was like, oh, because I was in high school, I was so into Buffy. And I'm like, when I was in high school, I wanted to not be thinking of I wanted to think about being an adult and all that. So anyway, but yeah,
that was every aspect of high school was not something I then wanted to come home to.
Right.
So I jumped off of Buffy going right to Angel of like, this is different. Thankfully, I was never the biggest Firefly person ever, but I loved Serenity. Like I'm the weird person that really didn't care about series.
Thank you.
Loved the movie.
I've said that Serenity, the movie, was better than the show, and everybody hates me for saying that. Yes,
I am with you on this, Nathan. We are
it's simpatico here.
We are together in this. But I gave Dollhouse a chance because I was like, well, everyone in this cast is awesome, so I will now watch this show. And I liked it. I didn't keep up with the second season, but like I think I might go back and rewatch it because you're right that it's got bits of Severance in it that like I think that like they looked at Dollhouse and went, what if we do this spin on this kind of a concept, this kind of idea, we'll do our own spin on it in this setting. Like it's very reminiscent of each other, so I might actually go back and give Dollhouse another chance.
Yeah, the only thing, because I'm not knowing anything other than that it was a Whedon series, the only thing that probably could have, if somebody had really pushed me to watch it, was that Eliza Dushku, because as soon as I saw her on Angel, I was like, oh.
Yep. That is literally what got me to Dollhouse.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're great. You're interesting. I will continue this trend.
It is a showcase for her, so it's definitely a great way to see a lot of Eliza Dushku.
Anyone else have anything to say about Dollhouse?
Yeah, I mean, I saw both seasons, and am I remembering right that it was also one of those that they left a few narrative threads unaddressed, or did they wrap things up by the end of the second season?
Yeah, I'd say they had a better wrap up than a lot of series that are cut off before their prime. Right. And they actually, something that I wish they'd continued, they actually did like a short comic book series about like the events immediately following the apocalypse event. I think it was like a 5 issues, which I liked, and wish that they continue with that because I was interested in the series and kind of what happens after. So not the most satisfying ending, but certainly not the least.
I mean, I remember enjoying the show. I don't know if I would go back to rewatch it anytime soon. But yeah, I got to add that I'm also one of those who preferred Angel to Buffy, preferred Serenity to Firefly, and probably the Nevers would be Joss Whedon's least remembered and most invisible show.
I think I have. I was trying to rack my brains. It's like I think I did hear about that once, but yeah, I don't.
That came and went so fast.
And that one that's also HBO disappeared it from its catalog.
But yeah, Felicity actually brought up something that I don't think we mentioned the last time we talked about this topic. Sometimes some of these shows get comics, afterwards to like wrap up or continue. Like I know Firefly has sort of survived in comics for years after it got canceled. So I don't know if they still do comics about Firefly, but I know for many years they did. So yeah, I mean that is a thing that does allow some of these shows that don't have satisfactory like endings to like continue. But Annie, what do you want to talk about?
Oh gosh. Well, I've been looking forward to this because I recently rewatched Earth 2, and I have to admit I really love that show. And it had its problems. I know it had some issues, and I think pacing was one of the issues that they had. And I know some people say, well, it was kind of a, copy of Lost in Space. And it does have some similarities at the beginning, but that's kind of where the similarities end. Once they do land on Earth 2, um, things are extremely different from Lost in Space. But from the beginning, the Earth has been it's mostly uninhabitable, and these colonies live in space now, and the kids, some kids are born with this rare disease that I think they call the syndrome, which isn't really even recognized. It's kind of hushed up and hidden. And so this woman, Devon Adair, her son gets it, and so they're going to leave and try and find a new planet where these children can hopefully be well. So the council, which is kind of like, the government in charge, plans to sabotage their mission, blow up their ship. And they find this out. They are able to get rid of the bomb, finally make it to the new planet where they crash land, and they are nowhere near where they're supposed to be. They know that they have other colonists who are supposed to be following after them, so the show then focuses on them trying to get to this place where they were supposed to originally land, called New Pacifica, so that they can meet the other colonists when they arrive. One of my favorite things about the show is that it has Tim Curry in it, and I think he is fabulous in anything. Um, and of course, he ends up being kind of a bad guy, but he's such a lovable bad guy. Just like in Clue, he ends up kind of being the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy. But it's like you love him anyway, you know. Um, but yeah, so it's their adventures trying to cross this planet. More comes out about the council, and what they're really doing. And there are, of course, questions left. It only lasted one season. But there are questions about what this council is really doing, what they really know, how it was a penal colony, this planet was, before they had decided to colonize it. And they had never told these people that it was a penal colony. So they run into issues like Tim Curry because of that. But yeah, I do feel like the pacing was a little slow. Some of if I'm remembering, when I rewatched it, a couple of the episodes were out of order. And I don't remember if it aired that way, but it made it kind of confusing. So I need to go back and look and see if it aired that way. But I know I was a little confused because the episodes were not in order.
Yeah, the 90s. Well, actually, I mean, TV in general did not respect like air date order. And
Right.
Babylon 5 was the first major show that I remember that like was like, no, you have to show them in order
Right.
because it matters and you just have to do it that way. So yeah, no, I remember how confusing it could be watching shows.
Yeah, it is definitely confusing. And if they're trying to get a show canceled, I think that's a good way to do it right there. Um, yeah, so oh, I just lost my train of thought, sorry. Um, but yeah, it's one of those that I think was a good idea, and they have some good ideas in it. It also kind of has some ethical issues in it when they find that one of their people, the doctor, is actually working for the council and starts doing some really bad things. They decide to leave her behind. And eventually they do go back and get her again. But I thought, well, that's a good ethical question. What do you do when you're a small group fighting for survival? You all have to work together, and then you find that someone is betraying you. So I don't know. I think it brings a lot of good storylines, ethical questions, environmental questions, and also questions about native rights in a way, because you actually do have creatures who are on this planet, who are native to this planet. They're the Tarians, who do end up healing Devon's little boy. But there are other kind of issues with them. They're telepathic in this strange way. I feel like we don't fully explore the Tarians. That was one thing I really wanted to know more about. And then we have the Grenlers, which are scavengers that drool a lot. I guess very strange looking creatures. But yeah, and there is an episode that happens in the future where, you know, people have done some pretty bad things to the Terrians, and it raises a lot of good questions about, you know, what rights would people have to colonize another planet that already has, you know, living creatures on it, and what do we have to do? Work with them, you know, or I mean, I think, you know, looking at history, we'd probably just steal the planet, but it does bring up some good questions and some interesting conflict.
Yeah, you know, I had forgotten this show even existed until you had mentioned
Oh,
it as a
really?
show you wanted to talk about. And I don't know why it was in the 90s, so I don't know why I
Yes.
didn't watch it. I remember seeing commercials for it. There must have been something else on, because when I look at all the trash that I watched in the 90s, it was like, oh, this is vaguely genre. Okay, I'm going to watch this, you know. And it's like, oh, why didn't I watch this show? This seems like the kind of thing I would have watched. So yeah, no, I have
Yeah.
nothing
Oh,
to
yeah. I
add
loved it
about
in the
Earth 2.
90s. It was one of those that, you know, I was ready for it. Every night it came on, I had my popcorn. I was ready. So I was very disappointed when it was canceled.
Yeah, that's one of those Fox. It was on Fox, right? Like where like they'll
Oh,
just do a show for a
I
season.
I actually don't remember which channel it was on. You might be right.
I think
Yeah.
it was Fox because
Was it?
I do
Okay.
remember this show.
Yeah, because Fox was famous for that they would do like a genre show for a
Yeah.
season and then they would cancel it. I mentioned last time The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., which was a sci-fi western that they did that I really loved, and that only got one season.
Just kidding. It was NBC.
Oh, it was NBC.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah. Well, NBC did the same thing.
Yeah, I guess it was just a trend. Yeah.
Annie, when you started describing this, I thought, did I watch that? And I was looking for a specific actor and determined that the show I was actually thinking of is Terra Nova, which was
okay.
and if I had seen this and seen Tim Curry in it, I absolutely would have watched it because I love Tim Curry. Some of this one just passed me by.
Yeah, and Tim Curry is one of those, like, I think he's really amazing, you know, and I wish that he had been in more of it. And I was surprised. My memory was that they did the show for a while and then Tim Curry came in, but actually he comes in very early on. And then of course, you know, he goes for, I can't remember how many episodes, but then he's gone. And I just thought, boy, I think that was a mistake. I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe Tim Curry didn't want to do a long-term.
Or they couldn't afford to have him.
Well,
for a whole
that could be
season,
too. I'm
and
sure
like,
he wasn't cheap.
we can afford to have him for X number of episodes.
Yeah. But I would have loved it if he had been at least a recurring character.
Anyone else have anything to add about Earth 2?
No, never. Not one I never saw.
All right, then it's down to me then. So it's kind of funny. Before this started, you know, we were kind of talking a little bit about, you know, shows that you need to give a little bit of time for, and, you know, whether or not that's legitimate. You know, a lot of people now are talking about how quickly streaming services will cancel something. That it's like, if they don't get the downloads they were expecting in the first week, they'll cancel a show. You know, and that's, you know, really sad. But, you know, I was going to come in here saying sometimes the audience is the problem, that they cancel the show by not giving it a chance, because in my mind, you know, like I said, if show's been around for, you know, years, they kind of had their shot. But to me, because I can think of a lot of shows where, you know, their first season even wasn't really that good, but if they're allowed to continue it, the show actually grows and gets very good. And I was also thinking about the fact that I was mostly leaning towards genre, which makes sense. 42 Cast, we mostly talk about genre, but there's a show that's kind of genre adjacent that I thought was like, okay, well, maybe I'll mention a different kind of show that I feel like people were turned off by the first few episodes. They actually replaced the showrunner mid-season, and then the show got really good. And that show is the 2015 version of The Muppets. For anyone who remembers that show, that was the Muppet series that they did in the style of The Office, where they would kind of like cut to them doing like an interview later and then go back to the thing. And I agree, the first like 6-8 episodes, I can't remember how many, were awful. Like, they were pretty bad, and I was like, with my Muppet love, I was still struggling to watch the show. But then they replaced the showrunner, and instantly the show got hilarious. Like, it was great. They fixed all the weird drama they were trying to set up in the first half with like Kermit and Miss Piggy and everything, and just settled down. And it's a Muppet show. Don't overthink it. Like, you don't have to think too hard about, just let the characters interact and let it be funny and wacky, and Muppets fans will love it. But the problem is, and I talked to people about the show later, they had stopped watching, after they saw like 2 or 3 or however many episodes, and they never went back to give it a chance. And I hate that, because I think it did get the views that they wanted for the first few episodes, but then it tapered off really badly, and that's why the network canceled it. And I feel like if they had done like a really strong ad campaign to say like, we've actually, because that, I don't know that I've ever heard of replacing a showrunner mid-season on the first season. Like, if they had basically said like, but of course networks never want to admit they're at fault, right? Like, we hired the wrong person to write the show, so they didn't do anything to really say like, it's better now, like, come back. And so because of that, they got canceled. So yeah, I consider that to be a huge disappointment, because I loved that show in the second half, and I feel like if the fans who were turned off by it in the beginning had come back, like it. Okay.
I loved that show as well. Or at least I had high expectations for it. Like, I was ready because I also love Muppets. But I was also in the same boat where the first couple episodes, I think I stopped at like episode 4 because I wanted to give it a chance because it's the Muppets.
Right.
And you think that that's foolproof until
well, yeah, we hadn't had the Muppets on TV, like, I don't know, like, since the Muppet Show in like the 70s and 80s. Like, I don't,
right.
there'd been movies, but there hadn't been.
Now the highlight of every year's Game Awards is Stadler and Waldorf making fun of Jeff Keighley. Like, it is the highlight of their unrestrained vitriol towards that man, and we love it every single year because it's the Muppets. It is foolproof, or at least it should be. But yeah, I gave that show like 4 episodes. The second you said that, I'm like, yeah, I know exactly the show you're talking about, because I thought the setup was so interesting, because I'm like, you could still do the behind the scenes of like putting on a show thing that we all know, like we all knew the Muppet Show for.
The Muppets
but now
did
we
meta before anyone else did meta, because they would go behind the curtain and see what was going on, and then you would go into, like,
talk to the stars and get like wacky, like not real versions of them, and have them interact with the Muppets, and it was awesome. And I thought I was going to get more of that, but yeah, you're right. That weird subplot with like Kermit and Miss Piggy that didn't need to be there also struck me as like really weird and just shoved in. Like, we didn't need it. I had no idea that they changed the showrunner. That's so interesting. So yeah, I might give the back half a try that I never saw, if you say that it's like it's dramatically improved.
I don't know that personally. A friend of mine who was a scriptwriter for years on network television, who's been on the show, Tom Parham, he was the one that told me that they replaced the showrunner. So that's why I'm saying I don't know that they let anyone know that they had replaced the showrunner. So like,
I mean, I'll explain it. They'll do it.
right, exactly. So like, yeah, because suddenly they got rid of that weird drama stuff, and like they just were like, this is a fun Muppet show. Just let
they're
it be.
Puppets. Figure it out.
Right.
This isn't
hard. Did anyone else watch that show?
No. It sounds like the audience asked itself, why do we always come here? And didn't have a good answer.
I watched it, and I think I found it mildly amusing all the way through. I don't think I noticed a huge change, but again, it's been a while. So the one thing I specifically remember is Miss Piggy getting on a plane and thinking that she would be offered a pre-flight lasagna. But that wasn't really a thing, and that was just something that Kermit did, like had arranged for her previously when they were in a relationship.
Annie, had you seen that show? Because I know you like the Muppets, right?
I do like the Muppets. I remember seeing bits and pieces. I can't remember why I wasn't. I don't know if it was a time or something I couldn't see it, but I do need to go back and watch it because I only vaguely remember this one.
So yeah, just for me, my Muppet love. I'm a weirdo who actually went back and watched the whole Muppet Show during COVID lockdown. So
nice.
like
that's a great idea.
Muppets.
Yes.
We did a little bit of it here and there, looking for specific guest stars.
Yeah, one of my best friends did the exact same thing, going through it for the first time for her. So I got to live through that, to be like, oh, you're getting to some cool episodes.
Yeah, Beth had vaguely seen a few of them in her childhood, but through my childhood, it was syndicated when I was a little kid or something. Because even though I was 3 when it went off the air originally, like somehow I watched it as a little kid somewhere. So a lot of the episodes like struck like very dim memories in me, where I was like, because other than the Mark Hamill one, which of course was seared into my young brain, because I was like, Luke Skywalker is on, and it was Luke Skywalker, not Mark Hamill. I should be clear, because they went in character for that. But it was like that I remembered a lot of, but most of those just kind of like dim memories. But like every once in a while there'd be a skit or something where it'd be like, so it was cool. But let's go to our second picks. And
I didn't do my first one.
Paige didn't go.
Whoa, wait, did I skip you, Paige?
Yeah, you did.
Oh,
I wanted you to get your part out first, naturally,
so
and then we can just edit mine back.
I was gonna say, when you started that you hadn't gone to Paige, but I'm like, I don't want to interrupt the flow. So
exactly, I didn't want to do that either. Now I can.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Paige, please.
So I have a bunch. I had an honorable mention of Stargate Universe because Nathan, we talked about this in DMs, and I remembered that, and I was like, oh really? And then like a week later they're like, Stargate's coming back, baby, and I'm like, oh ho, maybe I will be vindicated now. Resolution of that series. So I giant Stargate fan. Growing up, I loved SG-1. I loved Atlantis. I also watched Universe. Like, was it a good show? Not really. But was it Stargate for me? Sure was.
So it's only gone too soon because it was Stargate, not because it was good.
For me personally, yes. That's why it's an honorable mention.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm with you with SG-1 and Atlantis. Like, I loved those shows, and I couldn't make it like more than like 4 or 5 through Universe like that. Now, to be fair, it was at a time in my life where I was very stressed, and I kept forgetting it was on. But the thing was, the show didn't grab me in a way to like make me like feel like I should be watching it. And so like, and after a while I was just like, I've missed so many episodes at this point. Is it even where the only other show that's done that to me is Star Trek Enterprise, where I just like, it wasn't because I like ever said like I'm gonna stop watching this show. It was more like I just kept missing it because it wasn't a priority, and it was kind of blah. And so because of that, I kind of just fell off and never like watched more than like a handful. But
yeah, that was basically the mentality that a lot of other people went through, and that's why the ratings went down. But I got to have Ming-Na Wen on my screen.
Oh, nice!
That was great.
I didn't know
she was awesome in the show. And like it was a cool premise. It was slow and it kind of meandered, and the main antagonist was like more like a mechanical kind of like drones and stuff like following the ship. It didn't have the same impact as like the Goa'uld or even the Ori, or the Wraiths. They didn't have the same impact that those villains had through every single Stargate iteration. And then the actual scope of the show became smaller because it's not really a bottle episode every show, but you're stuck on that ship, aren't you? On the Destiny. So it wasn't like, oh, we're in another galaxy like Atlantis, and then we can expand from there. Or, oh, it's SG-1 just going to other places. It was very contained. So I thank them for doing something different. It didn't work out, but it didn't deserve
I love that you're talking about its faults as you're talking about it was gone too soon.
It's more that it wasn't resolved. Yeah. The fact that it leaves on a cliffhanger, or everyone on the ship is in stasis except for one character, Eli, and he's kind of just monitoring this jump that the ship is doing, and it fades out with his back turned, like looking at the screen, looking at the ship moving, and then that's all you get. You never see what happens to everyone on that ding dang ship.
Has it ever been continued in comics or anything?
Yes, it did actually get a comic continuation. I don't remember how far it got, but it's not really considered canon. So it's kind of like in limbo stasis, especially now that we have Stargate coming back. and now there could be opportunities to resolve certain cliffhangers.
But Sage, I know what you want, but I'm 90% sure, knowing how studios behave, it's going to be a reboot. Like, all the old continuity is going to be gone with this new Stargate. That's
they said they promised me in that video it is a continuation. They, or at least another jumping off point. It's not going to be like a full reboot, thankfully. But they could definitely bring back certain people for guest stars maybe and resolve certain things. It would be very nice for me, specifically the one person who remembers Stargate Universe.
You're not the only one. I know at least one other person.
Yes. I'm the only one passionate about this.
No, I know one other person. You're not the only one. In fact, she was somebody that may have been on a panel with us back in Dragon Con in 2019, the last time I was there.
I would not be shocked.
I was on a panel with her where we talked about Universe. I can't remember if you were on that panel.
I might have been there. My eyes might have lit up with a fire that I had rarely even seen.
Oh, man. Anyone else watch Stargate Universe?
Oh, yeah, I watched it. Because I'm a huge Stargate fan too. Yeah, I know. I loved SG-1 and Atlantis. I actually ended up liking Atlantis a little better than SG-1.
Same. Atlantis became my main love.
Oh my God! Yeah. How are we all agreeing on these like controversial topics? Because I also prefer, especially late season SG-1. I definitely prefer Atlantis.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's what Jason Momoa in it. How do you go wrong with that?
Because I always thought, like, they start this spin-off of Atlantis, but then they keep going with SG-1. Oh, I can't see.
This is my guy, Dr. Rodney McKay.
I love Rodney. Rodney was my favorite character, hands down.
I did not
by the
like
way,
him
David Hewitt is a
but I loved him in
great
Atlantis.
guest. Like, he is very friendly and nice and will talk with you like a real person.
That's amazing. But yeah, I was not a fan of Universe, and I actually watched probably more of it than I should, hoping that it would get better. But I didn't like the direction they took it in, the feel of it. You know, how they were like, we're gonna make this all, you know, dark and adult and everything. That just, I don't know, that did not work for me. And also, I didn't like the characters. I mean, in SG-1,
you got my point, Annie. That was what I was going to say.
Yeah. In SG-1, I really like the characters. And even if, you know, Rodney can be a jerk sometimes, but he can be a lovable jerk. And the way he interacts with some of the other characters is really fun. But in Universe, I was just like, man, all these people are horrible people, and I don't like any of them. And when they were going to burn up in the sun in that one episode, I was just like, yeah, I don't care. Go
Do
ahead.
it.
well, yeah. So Annie, I think that's a really important point, because my thing about like Stargate has always been, for the first two series, they made me care about the characters. So even when they had bad episodes, like the last two seasons of SG-1 are complete trash. Like, I don't think there's a single good episode in the last two seasons of SG-1, but I loved Teal'c, I loved Sam, and I loved Daniel. So because I had already loved those three characters from the beginning, I watched it for them, for their interactions and for the things that they did together, because I loved those characters. Right. And the same thing with Atlantis. I don't think it was as instant as I clicked with the SG-1 characters, but I grew to love the Atlantis characters. And so by season 2, certainly I was with them for their adventures. With Universe, that was the thing. I was like, I hate each and every one of these people. Yes. And I don't care if they live or die. And that's a huge problem.
Yes, that was me. To a T.
Like, we've got the selfish person, we've got the angry person, we've got the really patronizing geek identification figure that doesn't act like any geek actually acts, but it's like, you can tell the showrunners, like, they're really dumb and socially, like, incapable of interacting with people, and they just constantly make references, and I'm like, I think if I was in a life and death situation, I would realize the other people around me aren't geeks, and I wouldn't constantly use references after they tell me I don't get your references, so that we would delay things and everything. I hate that sort of thing of, you know, that sort of like kind of character that they insert that's supposed to be, all the geeks will love. But then, of course, the funny thing is when anybody talks about Universe, they're always like, oh, but I really loved him because he was a geek like me. And I'm like, yeah, but he's an insult. He's not like a real person. Like,
And
I
how
don't
long
know.
did he? I'm trying to remember. Did they ever get him new clothes, or did he just roam around in his jammies the entire?
Oh yeah, it's just
thing?
that hoodie. It's just that hoodie the whole time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, no, I had problems with you. Like, this is one of those things, like, right now I am forcing myself to watch all of Star Trek Enterprise because I'm trying to watch through the whole show. So someday if I do, like, a Stargate rewatch, I probably will force myself to go through all of Universe, in the same way. But much as with Enterprise, I'm pretty sure it'll be the same thing where I'm literally forcing myself to watch it because even though it does get better, like, Enterprise does get better, I'm in the 3rd season now, it still isn't good. It's better than it started out as.
Like, I didn't make it to the 3rd season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Season 4 is the best.
That's what I've heard. I've
just got to stick with it for longer than normal.
And I know Berman and Braga don't write in season 4 except for the last one, and that's a good thing because they are such rampant misogynists that it's like I'm watching these episodes and I'm just like, my God, like no previous Star Trek would allow this. And the fact that the black guy never gets any lines, like we go like a whole season, he maybe gets like 3 lines a season. I'm like, this is supposed to be Star Trek. This is supposed to be like the egalitarian perfect future. Like, what is this? Like,
And I'm sure everyone's warned you, but even if you're a completionist, you should avoid the last episode of Enterprise.
Oh no, I already know. In fact, that's my headcanon for why Enterprise doesn't matter is I say the whole show was a holodeck fantasy, so it doesn't matter.
It's not that it's a holodeck fantasy is the problem. It's that it's still just such a terrible episode.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen Enterprise, but when that last episode dropped and everyone was like, whoa, over it, I was like, well, let me just find out what happened. Whoa.
But yeah, all my friends who watched Enterprise told me about that last episode when it came. So I've already been spoiled on it. I already know what's happening there. All right.
I saw all of SGU. I think I enjoyed it more than everyone else. I think part of it was that I did kind of enjoy that it wasn't like them having shootouts with the terrible aim of the Goa'uld and then the Ori and then the Wraiths, and it's like, come on, guys. And I did think that the cast of Universe was probably the strongest bunch of actors in any Stargate series, just in terms of the quality of their acting. It would get a little awkward sometimes when they interacted with, and no shade on the SG-1 cast, but they were not quite as accomplished as the SGU cast for the most part. One thing that I don't know if I'm correct from what I hear, that they actually did know that they weren't going to be renewed, but they kind of made it a cliffhanger as sort of like maybe as sort of a bluff that, hey, maybe they'll give us like a couple more episodes or a movie to finish it. And they didn't. So I'm a little annoyed. If that is accurate, then I'm annoyed at the showrunners for doing that.
There are so many examples of that, of people trying to psych out the network to like be like, you gotta renew us now. And it's like, no, the networks don't care. Like if you have an unsatisfactory ending, they'll just leave it that way. That's why I'm glad that like JNT was talked them out of doing the cliffhanger Trial of a Time Lord ending, because they probably would have canceled it right then, Doctor Who, right then. It's like, whoops. But all right. Now, Assad, please give us your second pick.
Oh, so many choices. But I think I'll go with the Almost Human, because I liked that show so much that I even bought the entire season on Amazon. So I guess and it's a relatively newer show. Carl Urban, I always enjoy me some Carl Urban. Cop in the future who gets injured, and they've gets partnered with a highly sophisticated android partner, and the police of the future already have sort of less sophisticated androids as the sort of support, but this is like a really almost human android. So, but yeah, it's future crimes, generally well written, and I guess J.H. Wyman, who created it, also did Fringe. and later on Debris. So it's sort of that seems to be sort of his
What
wheelhouse.
show am I thinking of? Because when you said Almost Human, I thought it was a show about like a vampire or
Yeah, that's
werewolf and a
Nearly
ghost.
Human, I think, or something.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a British version and an American version.
Yeah. No. I've heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know that I've heard of all. I think anytime I've heard of Almost Human, I thought they were talking about the show with the vampire and the werewolf.
It was Being Human. I remember that.
Being
that yeah.
But the show you're describing, Assad, reminds me of a 90s show that only lasted one season called Man and Machine, which was the same way. It was like the future. He was a cop. He gets assigned like a female android partner. And, it was man spelled MANN because that was his last name, and machine because the android. So it was Man and Machine. But yeah.
When I was looking this up on Wikipedia, apparently there was a contemporaneous show called Holmes and Yo-Yo, which was more a comedy, but also was a cop paired with an android.
I think it's an idea people like.
But yeah, so they were still kind of early in their world building, but they were definitely going places. And I feel Carl Urban was also sort of bringing in a few little Judge Dredd isms into it. I know he's a Judge Dredd fan, so they started referring to their jails as cubes. And so I don't know if that was just a coincidence or something he wanted to put in. But I enjoyed it, and then it ended. So
was it only one season or two?
One season.
And was it network?
This one was on Fox.
Oh, okay.
Confirmed.
Okay. What time period was it?
This was 2013, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's that sort of period of my life was when I wasn't watching a lot of TV, like live and whatnot, and I, was busy with a lot of work stuff and whatnot, so it's not surprising to me that
I watched it and also liked it, but and I'm quite fond of Carl Urban. But just the fact that you brought this up reminded me of a show that I hadn't thought of that was based on Minority Report. Or it was, it was not really based on the film, but it was the same concept. And that was a one-season show that I feel like it was in the same kind of time frame that I thought was really good. But I liked
the Minority
Almost
Report
Human.
Show. That one I did not see.
Anyone else see Almost Human?
I did watch Almost Human. I liked it. It didn't grab me. But when I remembered it was on, I enjoyed my time with it. And yeah, I also really like Carl Urban, and I really like the whole android detective and a human partner. Can they get along? I do like that premise a lot. And that Minority Report television show was 2015, so right after this one.
Which was about when my life was settling down. So
that
explains why I was.
I'm not sure if Almost Human is streaming anywhere for free, so I don't know how accessible it is now.
But yeah, it's definitely one that if I catch it somewhere, I'll probably watch it just because. Yeah, I mean, Carl Urban and premise, interesting. Felicity, what's another pick from you?
So embarrassingly, this was one I didn't remember until I went through my DVD collection and said, "Hey!" So this was a series from 2001, 2002, and it was a comic book adaptation, and it is called Witchblade. Witchblade starred Yancey Butler as she's a cop. She's her father was a cop who was killed in the line of duty, and she's kind of like a hardened, tough woman sort of character, a little bit stereotypical, but I think that the actress generally does a good job. And basically, she's a encounter between her and a ancient weapon is engineered by this rich dude who has traced the lineage of this weapon, the Witchblade, and knows that it belongs with Sarah. So she, this basically during a shootout, this kind of armor gauntlet jumps onto her arm, and she finds that she can deflect bullets and stuff with it. And then when she blacks out and wakes up the next morning, there's a strange bracelet on her nightstand. So the bracelet is actually, turns into the Witchblade when she needs it. I watched the pilot, which is actually a movie length pilot, and then there was 2 seasons. This is another one like Dollhouse that I feel like the second season maybe went in the wrong direction. The first season in itself, I think, is an almost perfect season of television, to be honest. And it does something at the end that people probably generally find controversial, but I think it actually works. I don't want to spoil it in case people see it, but suffice it to say that the second season is kind of a bit of a reset, and I think they start off with a really interesting concept because in the first season, in the pilot movie, Sarah's partner is killed, but I think because the Witchblade is present, he actually kind of becomes a spirit guide to her, so he's still around giving her advice throughout the series, throughout the first season, and then in the second season things happen differently, and she has a different spirit guide, which I thought was a good concept, but just the writing was not as strong, and it wasn't. I feel like it wasn't as serialized. They were trying to go more with a kind of story of the week. There were some actors there was an actor, Eric Edibari, which I just looked him up because I'd forgotten about the show. I'd forgotten about him, but he was someone who I really liked. And I think he's done a fair amount of stuff since then. Irons is the mysterious billionaire, and then Ian Nottingham is kind of the actor, the character that Eric Edibari plays, who's kind of the sidekick, or works for the billionaire, is kind of a mysterious warrior guy, and that worked on me. I liked him a lot. I watched the pilot yesterday, and I'm excited to revisit this series because I have it on DVD. I'm not sure that it's there. But good stuff, especially if you like, tough female characters, kicking ass.
Yeah, I can be petty sometimes. I do not like Image Comics. So even though I was aware of Witchblade, I never watched it just because of the fact that it was an Image comic, and Image is known for just like flat splash pages of scantily clad women and no plot, and so I was like, I'm not going to give Image like anything.
Yeah.
So.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure the comic does involve scantily clad.
Oh no, I've
the
seen Witchblade comics before,
yeah.
So even though I've never bought one, I have seen the character, and I know how.
It's pretty notorious for that.
Right.
Yeah, her wardrobe bill, not
with the
big.
Witchblade barely covering just like the very essential areas and nothing else, and just being like weapons on her hands. Yeah.
Fortunately, that never happens in the series. She is. I mean, obviously, it's on network television, but she's.
But
she's
maybe
fully
I
clothed
should have
and,
given the adaptation, some time. But yes, I knew it was an Image comic, so I gave it no time.
Yeah, she's fully clothed, and I think I'm not overly sexualized. My memory.
Was it on TNT or?
Yes,
I believe it was TNT. Yeah, either that or USA. Anyway, like in my head, like I was like it was on. Anyone else have any experience with Witchblade, the show?
I did not see it for the exact same reasons, Nathan, that I knew about the comic before the show, and yeah, I had the same thing.
Paige, are we long lost siblings or something?
Dude,
I feel like.
But it was the same reasons. We were like, I dare, like at that time, I was like, I dare you to draw this woman with a waist that makes sense. I dare you to say that she has a
clothing.
spine.
Like,
yeah,
give her the impossible waist, but can she wear clothes? Like,
yeah, it's like we need to make sure that her boobs and her butt are in frame at all times, regardless of a spine. Sometimes.
Oh, Rob Liefeld, you put a gun to his head, and he probably still couldn't do it.
Well, you could say, I can completely understand why that would turn someone off.
It sounds like the show was fantastic, though.
It was really good. I think, especially, the first season definitely is a great piece of television in its entirety, and I wouldn't necessarily pursue the second season after that, but first season, solid.
Yeah, because I always liked the premise.
Knowing that comic book adaptations in the early 2000s usually barely bore any resemblance to the comics, I can believe that the show was actually better than the comic. Like, yeah, I remember some other comic book adaptations I watched around the same time that were like, other than the name, I would not think this is the same thing at all in this comic. So Yeah. Annie, what's your second pick?
My second pick is Terminator: The Sarah Connor
Ah,
Chronicles.
that was actually going to be my next one because we were going in sort of like a
Oh,
pattern of
sorry, I
like,
stole
yeah.
it. Yeah, I was looking around, gosh, because I ended up having a big list. At first, I kind of ran a blank on this, but then as I thought about it, I got more and more shows. But this is another one that I really enjoyed. I'm a big Terminator fan, but after Terminator 2, the movies got a little iffy, you know, and there are parts of the movies that I like, but ultimately I don't feel like they really added much to the story or to the franchise after the second one. But the Sarah Connor Chronicles, I thought really took it in a much better direction than any of the movies did. And it's one of those that, yeah, again, like, you know, every show has problems. And so when I watched it, I'm like, yeah, okay, it had some problems. I thought season one was really strong. You know, we see John and Sarah, and it's what, 1997, I think. And John's, is he 15 or 16? And they're trying to live a more normal life, but of course they can't because they're the Connors, and trouble always finds them. Terminator comes after him. They end up actually going to, is it 2008? They end up going through in a time machine to the future, which I think was then 2008.
Right. They
Because,
skip over when Judgment Day was supposed to happen, and they arrive
right,
in a future that's like our present, that
yes,
Judgment Day never did happen.
yeah. And then Sarah finds out that because it does take place after the second movie, she finds out that she didn't stop Judgment Day, just delayed it. And so, you know, I thought what was interesting is that, you know, John wants her to try and stop Judgment Day again because he's worried about becoming this man that everyone keeps saying he's going to be. It's, you know, that's a lot of pressure on somebody. So I'm really glad they kind of put that into perspective for us with him. Uh, and then of course there's a lot that goes on. I don't even know if I want to try and summarize.
Yeah, I don't think you should summarize because I mean I feel like the
No,
journey is part of the reward for watching
true.
that show. There are so
It
many
is.
twists.
It is. There are a lot of twists and turns, and I thought season one was excellent. Season two, I did think lagged a little compared to season one, and there were a couple of things that I wasn't as big a fan about in season two. But the thing I loved in season two was that they introduced a new, I think she was new for season two, the T-1000 character. And oh my goodness, I thought she was excellent. And she was a different kind of Terminator because she was
She was
actually
in
working.
season one also. You
Was
talking about
she in
Summer
season
Glau?
one? Okay.
Yeah,
I
she
couldn't
was.
remember if she was. Um, but yeah, her story was really interesting because she was actually against Skynet. And so her whole purpose was to try and fight against Skynet in her own way. So when that came to light toward the end of season two, oh my goodness. I thought they had set us up, even though it was a little slow getting there. I thought they had set us up for something very exciting because I always thought after Terminator 2, you know, John really makes friends with the Terminator, and he kind of shows the Terminator what it means to be human and teaches him about humanity. And I always thought, wouldn't that be interesting if the way that John really wins this war is not necessarily through, you know, fighting and all of that, but by finding a way to work with these machines. And I think they were going to take that premise and run with it in season three. I mean, I'm not positive. I just felt like that was the way they were going with this T-1000. She had built her own AI, essentially, that she called her son to work against Skynet. And she was saying how John and her son would have to work together. And I thought, oh, I think this is where they're going with it.
Oh,
John
I
is going
see.
to be
I see what
that,
you're talking about.
right?
You're
Yeah.
talking about the liquid metal term. MC. Yeah, no, I get it now. Yes, it's 2000. You're right. No, I think she was also in the first season, but a much smaller role. But yeah. I get what
Oh,
you're
was
talking
she?
about now.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I just remember her mainly in the second season. Um, But yeah, so I thought they had set us up for something really good in the third season, and then the show was canceled.
Yeah,
So
the cliffhanger, that is one of the worst cliffhangers of all
yes,
time.
it
Also, which I don't want to
is.
describe it because again, it's a surprise.
I know, that's what I mean. I
But
don't want to describe everything. I'm like trying to say enough to show why I was so disappointed that it was canceled.
I was so excited by that cliffhanger that I was
I
like,
was
oh,
too.
they made this really interesting
Yes.
now. And
Yes. And even though, like I said, I felt like season 2 dragged a little more compared to season 1, but oh my goodness, they built up to something wonderful. And that's why, boy, I really feel conflicted to watch that. You know, I watched it a few, I don't know, it was maybe, actually, it might have been 4 or 5 years ago now. And I was so disappointed again. I'm like, do I want to watch this again and just keep reliving the disappointment? But I will say, I think it is the best thing that has come out of Terminator since Terminator 2. So probably worth a watch. Just you've got to be ready to be disappointed
yeah, to
at the end.
Felicity's sort of comment, this is a show that is also about like where humanity begins and ends, and we really
Right.
get into like the idea, because then we start to get into the idea of the Terminators may be patterned on actual humans that were captured,
Yes.
and their
Yeah.
consciousness was used. So that's how they're so good at faking. You know, some of them are obviously
Right.
the Arnold one must have been an early one that wasn't very good at faking
Yeah,
being
he
a
wasn't.
person,
He
but
wasn't as
like
good.
later models appear to be. So you even get where like the Summer Glau Terminator sometimes has these glitches and thinks she is a person, and you find out there is a person that looks
Yes.
like her alive in 2008. And
Right.
so the
Right.
implication is that Skynet at some point takes this girl
And
and
they
uses her
copied.
personality as a
Yes.
template for the Terminator.
Yeah, and I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting too. And her character was interesting as well because there was just a lot going on with that. And she was also damaged at one point, and so you never knew exactly what was going on
But we
with
get also the different future factions also, that
right.
it's not all just Resistance and
Right.
Skynet, and it becomes a much more nuanced like story with that also, which I really liked. So yeah, if there was a show that I could bring back, that's definitely like in my top 3 of like shows that I would want to like bring back and have like a
I
proper like
totally agree. I would love to see where they were going with that. I just thought, oh, this is just going to be so good. The setup was amazing.
yeah, I see my position on the Terminator franchise is a little different. I know most people my age, our age, came in with Terminator 2. But I actually came in with the original Terminator because my parents would never let me watch rated R movies, but I kind of like watched the original Terminator on like a separate thing. Was able to watch it like
I
during like a
watched it.
free HBO like
Yeah,
thing.
my babysitter accidentally let me watch it. My
And so
parents weren't
Terminator
happy, but yeah.
2, I saw when I was like 16. So I saw it well after it had come out, and I always hated the fact that it broke that it was a predestination paradox. Because I liked the ending of Terminator 1. It's a predestination paradox. Like it's always was meant to happen and to happen in this way. And Terminator 2 was like, no, you can change things. It's fine. And I'm like, what? Like, we already set up that it's a So I actually like Terminator 3 for fixing that and saying like, no, no, no. It
Right.
really is a predestination. So I actually like Terminator 3. I agree with you everything after Terminator 3, but I actually like Terminator 3 quite a bit.
Yeah,
That it like
yeah.
sort of like fixed that and made it the predestination like sort of thing.
There were,
But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. There were a few things in each of the Terminator movies that I enjoyed. So I don't know that I really hated any of them. I just didn't, I don't know. I just didn't feel like any of them were great continuations of the story. And yeah,
But
so
I
that's
do
fair.
think that the show tried to sort of like hedge its bets on those things and try to make it like
Yes.
it's mostly predestination with a
Right.
little bit of wiggle room. Like they tried to make everybody happy in a way that actually kind of worked. So I
That's
kind of like
true.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Anybody else watch the Sarah Connor Chronicles?
I know that I did, but I don't think that I watched the second season or that I stopped at some point because I don't remember a big cliffhanger. I remember maybe something turned me off to the series, and I'm just not quite sure what it was. And
I watched.
I'm not heavily invested in the Terminator franchise. I actually the second Terminator 2 is the only one of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I watched the whole show, and I remember. I mean, I'm a little hazy on my memory of it, but I remember enjoying it. It was really stylish in a lot of ways. Acting and all was really good. I do remember that feeling that it was also kind of unremittingly depressing, even though occasionally they would have a
Yes.
victory, destroy one of the Terminators chasing them. But for the most part, it was pretty downbeat.
I mean, for me, it's like if it's Terminator, it kind of like should be kind of downbeat. Like, 'cause the whole idea is everything is really going to hell. Like that's the whole thing of the series. So I don't know. I'm fine with that if it's not like every. I can do one.
Yeah,
Especially if the
I
plot
also
is really good.
Oh yeah, I also didn't watch the show, and I was trying to rack my brain for like why, because I do like the Terminator series, and I think that at the time, like even now, of all the other movies that have come out, like I love the first Terminator movie, but the second Terminator movie is a dang near perfect movie.
Oh,
Like
yes.
when it comes to effects, directing, writing, acting, top to bottom, that is the pinnacle of the series, from like a broad perspective. And I think that that might have colored my opinion on anything that came after it, even if if it was at least removed from that television show. Like when that pinnacle is so high so early, everything else that comes after it is gonna have to be like, hey, we gotta at least be close to that, right? And the answer is you will never do that. You have to be on your own. You have to be like that special thing. And it sounds like the show was. And that's really cool. And it sucks that like that me at that time didn't give it the time of day, but it does sound like they were doing their own thing and asking their own questions in this universe.
Yeah, I didn't see it at the time because that was part of that busy time like I was talking about. But a friend of mine lost a bet to me where she owed me $500 and she paid me back in DVDs. So over the course of like 10 years too, it was like so she every once in a while she would like, so she finally paid me back like just last year she finally finished. But like she would be like, this is a series you should watch, and would send me a DVD set. So she got me into several series like Fringe and Warehouse 13 and Sarah Connor Chronicles, things like that. So she helped plug in those gaps that I had of the like 15 years that I wasn't watching much TV. So that was good. So that's why it's fresher in my head than if you had watched it at the time. People who might have watched it at the time, because I mean, it was still a while back, but it was more like 7 or 8 years ago for me, and not like 15 years ago.
I don't know if you remember this, but the T-1000 in this is trying to live the life of the woman that I don't remember if she killed the woman or if the woman died somehow.
But she was like a billionaire,
Yeah. She was like living this billionaire's life, and she was raising this woman's child, and she was having a hard time. She was like struggling to connect with this little girl. And she was talking to one of her employees about it. And she's like, how do you do it? And she said, I don't know. Sometimes I just want to kill him. And she was like, oh, yeah. I don't know. I thought that was, I mean, an interesting way to put a little bit of comedy into something that generally doesn't have much in it.
Right.
But yeah.
All right, Paige, what's your second pick?
I've been sitting here going, how insane would it be if I had a heel turn and said Inhumans? It is not. That is not my pick.
Liar! No one liked that show. Nobody.
Burn her at the stake. No.
Right.
So my actual pick.
I literally watched it so no one else has to.
Yes.
I put that in the title of the episode. I watched it so you don't have to.
Remember that. Oh, so good. My actual pick is The Tick. And now you're asking yourself, oh, which version that got canceled? I'm talking about the Amazon one.
Yeah.
We are brothers. We are siblings.
Another one on my list.
I adored that show so much. I had loved The Tick, like loved the comics, loved the cartoon when it came out. When I was in college, they premiered the first episodes of the Fox one, and they had the cast there, to be like, this is our show. Do you want to ask us any questions? And I was like, how great are you guys? You guys are awesome. Because I love that. I love that version too. But the Tick version that was on, or the Amazon version of The Tick, was so heartfelt, and it had plot elements that ran through each episode that you could follow along and actually figure it out. There was really cool moments with Arthur, because it really centered on him too. Griffin Newman was that's Arthur. That is the perfect Arthur, full stop. It was cool. Mental health kind of, because that version of Arthur would have mental health breakdowns, and it was a really part of the plot where it's like, is he actually seeing the tick? Is this actually happening? Like for a little bit, and it was like, no, this is real. This is happening. Now you have to deal with this. Good luck. And it was handled very well done. That Arthur's not perfect, that the tick wasn't perfect, and it was just those two personalities having to bounce off of each other into this big wide world. And it was so good, and it was so well done, and like I keep saying, it had so much heart. It was at the time when The Boys was just kicking off on the same streaming service, and at the time, like, I wasn't really into it because I was like, I need something that has hope. I need something that's like a not cynical in the 2016 era. I need something that's not cynical, and that was The Tick for me. It was superheroes, but it lacked the cynicism that was creeping in. I loved all the characters that they had. They had Valerie Curry as Dot. She actually did go on to be on The Boys as a Firecracker, I believe. She's really great in this series as Arthur's sister, and she had her own agency and stories, and she got kind of into the superheroing business adjacently with a couple of the other characters. We have Alan Tudyk as a boat with PTSD for a whole episode.
All right. Okay. But that got a little creepy in a way that, like, I did not appreciate the constant, like, stalking of Arthur that the intelligent
that
boat
part
did
was a little gross.
Right, that got kind of gross in a way. I was like, okay, guys, the humor is now straying, like, away from funny into uncomfortable, like.
But they did deal with it. It did get resolved with Arthur being like, hey, I don't appreciate this. Like, they actually confronted that during the series instead of it being a creepy running joke through the whole thing. So I do give them.
It did go several episodes, I think, though.
Oh,
like,
it took a while.
Like, yeah.
Oh, it took a while.
Right. Yeah.
But
like there were even like some jokes that bordered on the thing is about to rape him, which you know is like
it gets dangerously close.
Right, which I don't find that funny.
Yeah, that part was good. But the rest of it, like, I loved the Miss Lint character, who was basically like a flunky kind of like second in command for the Terror during the first season. And I loved her evolution from going like, okay, well, this kind of sucks. Let me see if I can do something else. Second season, I'm going to just show up as a new superhero and just see what this business is all about. I love that it became more about her doing things for herself. I liked seeing a second banana go to be like, wait a minute, I don't have to do this. I can be whatever I want to be. And then just go start to fulfill that. I love complicated characters like that. We never, so the show didn't end on a cliffhanger, but it ended on a lot of unresolved questions, like, where did the tick come from? Why does he not remember where he's from or anything to do with him? Like at the very end of the second season, there's an implication on another dimensional force kind of coming through a certain character, and then that's never resolved. It was a lot of like unanswered questions and a lot of places that they could have gone in the third season that at the time I was really excited to see, and then Amazon had to be Amazon and then destroy my dreams.
I will tell you this, Paige, I just had an opportunity to do a survey for Sony, because it was produced by Sony, even though it was shown on Amazon, about like what properties that they have that I would like to be on disc. And even though I put a lot of movies on there, it did say television was also good. So I did put The Tick as one that I would like to see them produce on. So I don't know if my survey will do anything, but I did include that.
They will weigh yours more than
right. Yes, to weigh that idea of, you know, put out either Blu-ray or 4K, you know, Tick. Because I did check, it was recorded in UHD, so it could be even 4K disc. So yeah,
I hold that version of The Tick in high regard, just right next to the cartoon for me, of like hand in hand. This is great.
The Tick is an amazing property. I will say I've never read the comics. But I came in with the animated show. I loved the animated show. Because even though I do tend to prefer drama over comedy, The Tick was just such a funny spoof an examination of like superheroes in such a delightfully like goofy but yet thought-provoking. Like there's something about, it's an intelligent humor and how they like pull out these different superhero threads and whatnot. I did watch the 2001 sitcom version. I mostly thought it was trash. I think there were like 2 of the 9 episodes that I actually enjoyed. That was another one though that I felt like there was like the last 2 that I was like, oh man, if they had just gotten a little more time, maybe they could have pulled this together. But that was frustrating. But the show was so brilliant because it was a lot of the same material that the cartoon played with, and I'm assuming the comic does, but woven together in a completely different way, and actually being a little more thought-provoking is like, is the Tick really a delusion? Like actually asking the question, because he is such a weird character, but with no past or no anything. He just sort of like appears fully formed and never seems to question anything about like his life or anything. And it's like, could the Tick be a delusion? I like they kind of ran with that for a little bit, and just some of those examinations of like sort of the weird reality of the world and whatnot, and actually having people question it and stuff like that. I loved all of that. It was so good. And I love that we got into Arthur's life a lot more, not just about him, but about his family and everything, which had usually been something that, even though Dot does appear in the cartoon, I think she's in like 2 episodes of like 30 something, and we don't know anything about the rest of his like family or anything. And I thought that was nice, getting into a little bit more of, he's the ordinary guy that became a superhero in this world of like these larger than life crazy superheroes. So I thought examining him and getting into his life more was a much better like sort of entry into that universe and everything. So yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about that. That and the cartoon also for me are both like such high watermarks as far as like. Did anyone else watch that show on Amazon?
I don't think I even knew the second live action Tick existed.
That's Amazon.
It's worth a shot.
I will. Yeah, I'm only vaguely familiar with the character. I've seen a little bit of the cartoon. But it sounds amazing, so I will check it out.
I mean, knowing that you and Kevin both enjoy like comedic stuff and superheroes, I think that you might like the Tick.
Yeah, it sounds like.
All right. Nobody else saw the Tick.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Amazon barely promoted it when it was like actually like airing when it was coming out. There were like a couple like cool like displays and stuff at New York Comic Con for like a year. Like they literally like built Danger Boat out and like had like an improv, like someone actually like in the background as people would come into the boat, come into the set and like actually like talk to you while you were in there, which is kind of cool. And then they just acted like it didn't exist, like literally a year later.
I don't know. I can't remember how I found out about it. It might have been a Facebook post by somebody. It could have been that Amazon, because I had bought the DVD sets of the cartoon on Amazon, might have been like, you watch the Tick cartoon, so therefore we will promote this. And I might have seen an ad or something, but somehow I knew it was on because I did watch it like as it came out. So it wasn't like a later viewing for me. I did watch it in real time. But yeah, so for me, my second pick. So I had a lot, and like I said, I was going to go with the Sarah Connor Chronicles, but that's fine because Paige talked about it, so we've already talked about it. I'm going to go back to the 80s. And going back to the 80s, there was a show that was unusual, that was unlike anything else that I've ever seen, and I've seen even now, where it was I think meant to be a Saturday morning show, but in my area they showed it Sunday morning because it was syndicated. It was live action, not animated. It was for kids technically, but it was written by John Michael Straczynski, who would go on to write Babylon 5, and that show is Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. And speaking of Terminator, this was a show where this is a kid's show. We're in the apocalypse, okay? The machines have taken over and they are relentlessly going through and digitizing people. And what that means is there's this effect that they do where like the machine will like shoot out like this beam that like will pull somebody and they'll pixelate and get sucked in. And like later we get a character who's been liberated from that talks about like the pain of being shredded molecule by molecule and like being forced to like live in this hell like within the machines. And I'm like, this is a kid's show, okay? Like this is like a good show. But there were these 2 scientists that worked together on the AI that becomes Overmind, which is the villain. and they had a falling out, and one of them becomes bad. He becomes a cyborg called Lord Dread, because we do have some things that seem like a kid show, so he has a very overt name, Lord Dread. But then the other scientist, he creates these power suits to fight back against the machines, and so we follow his son. He gets murdered by his fellow scientists, like over this falling out that they have, and about the use of Overmind and whatnot. And so then his son gathers this team around himself where they have these power suits that they're able to basically transform and have this, suit that they go and fight, the machines with. And each suit is optimized for different, like, I think Captain Powers is meant to be like general all around good, but like one of them flies, one is like a tank. Like he's literally, his code name is Tank, because he's like a heavy armor, like, can repel, and he has got like a big cannon type gun. There's Scout, who can turn invisible. And so we've got like various like different like abilities that they each have and whatever. And it's the early use of CGI, because even though most of the robots, like the cannon fodder robots, are all like just people in like a costume, there are also like some CGI robots that are like the more powerful ones that they can't just shoot. Like the other ones, they like shoot and they fall down, and like these other ones are like Terminators, basically, where they come at you relentlessly and you can slow them down, but you can't like actually stop them. And it got one season, and it's an interlinked, every episode matters kind of show in the late 80s. I think this was like 88, 89, where it's evolving storylines, character dynamics. You get to the last episode, okay, they're gonna do this all-out assault on the mountain where Overmind is housed. They're betrayed by the person who gives them the information. One of them is killed. and they don't succeed, like, in the thing against Overmind, and you're left going like, what? And then that's it. That's the show. And it's just like, and they had they're like 6 scripts for season 2 written, so they were going to get 2 new team members, and there were a few other things that we know that like were planned for the show. And there were even hints like a few years ago about a revival of the show, where the guy who had originally played Captain Power was going to come back and play like the dad, because the dad like exists now as like a hologram that gives his son advice. Like he had downloaded his consciousness into a machine that gives his son advice. So the original star was now going to play the dad, and so it was going to be that sort of thing, and it just kind of fell apart. But that was an amazing. I still think it holds up. I've watched it fairly recently. And I still think it holds up. And for like a half-hour television show, like aimed at kids, it was way, way, way ahead of its time. And I feel like there's plenty there for adults. Beth liked it, and she had never seen it or heard of it before. And I showed it to her, and she really liked it. So I would definitely recommend it. Like if anyone ever gets, I don't know if it's streaming anywhere though. I have a DVD set that they put out. But if you can ever get a chance to watch it, I think it's definitely worth like giving a try. It's if you like Babylon 5, I think you'll like it, because it is very much that level of writing that, it's treated as a serious sci-fi show, even though it's a half-hour show. For anyone, did anyone ever watch that show other than me? Yeah.
I think I was aware that it existed, but I was a little old by that point.
Yeah, and of course the thing was, and the reason they didn't get renewed, is that it was a toy line that they wanted to turn into a show, and the writers put in way more effort than was ever, because the gimmick was they were toys that you could like shoot at the screen, and there were these flickering images on the screen that would score a hit if you shot like the things. But it was like, I never had the toys, and I didn't care about the toys. The show was so good that I was watching for the show, and that was the problem. They weren't selling toys, because I actually interviewed the star, Tim Dunnigan. I interviewed him for the 42 cast, and he was saying that the problem was the toy company pulled the funding, which is why they had to cancel the second season. It wasn't like a lack of viewership. It was the fact that the toy company was like, we're not selling product, so we're not funding the show anymore. And so without the money, they had to cancel the show. And that's like so disappointing to me, because it was such a good show. But because it was a syndicated show, it wasn't network backed. They needed that toy funding to keep it going, and they just weren't selling the toys, because it was kind of a dumb gimmick,
I'm glad we brought it up, because I know I've put the DVD in my basket at least once. I think I didn't actually buy it, but now that reminds me to. go back and pull the trigger on that.
I would be curious to hear your assessment of that show, because like I say, I think it's worth watching.
I'm surprised I missed that. That sounds like something I would have really liked, but I've not heard of it before.
Well, and also though, as a syndicated show, goodness knows if it was ever shown in your area, or if it was at some time. Like I say, it was like in my area, like Sunday mornings.
Okay.
So again, like if your family, like on Sunday mornings, didn't have the TV on, you never saw, like, you might not have seen it, kind of thing. So, I mean, that's the problem with syndication. Like a lot of shows that I have on the Gone Too Soon are syndicated shows, on my end, because of things like that, where it's like syndication, it's really hard to make it, a long time because you need a lot of popularity going.
Yeah, I didn't see this show when it was on, and I just went to check because the second you said like J. Michael Straczynski, I was like, oh, was this in the heyday of when he was writing for animation? And then I looked it up. Yes, because he was doing the real Ghostbusters at the same time. Every episode he touched of that show was gold. Every single one.
Real Ghostbusters and Jason the Wheeled Warriors.
Yes, I did watch.
Ring of Light, Magic Night.
But just thinking about him writing on one of the most toyetic shows at the time, Real Ghostbusters, but also putting in his signature effort on making the plots of his episodes fantastic. And just interesting being like on the most toyetic show at the time versus the other show he was also kind of writing on that was almost the opposite of it, where like you still had the amazing writing, but the toys weren't there to really support it.
It's not all lost, though, because he met a lot of people working on Captain Power that then went with him to Babylon 5. So, like, Lawrence DiTillio, who was the script editor for the first two seasons of Babylon 5, also wrote for Captain Power. Doug Netter, who was the producer, was one of the producers on Captain Power. So, like, he made connections, I think, that helped him in getting Babylon 5 done. So it wasn't a total loss, but it does sadden me that, we didn't get more of that show, because I feel like it was a show that could have gone for a long time. And like I say, as a kid, I hated being patronized. It was why I was mostly watching adult shows, even while I was a kid, because I didn't like how dumbed down and shows tended to talk down to you. And here was a show that wasn't talking down to me. And so I appreciated that.
I did see what I think was his only episode of Masters of the Universe, where Skeletor concocts a plan to make He-Man think he's killed an innocent villager. So it's not your standard Master of the Universe plot.
He goes there. I love it.
All right. Well, we've been talking about this for a while, and because we have 4 guests, we weren't able to each do a whole lot of these. But I think with 8 entries, we've talked about a good number of these shows that we feel like should have had more time. But I mean, really appreciate everything that you guys are bringing, and I had a lot of fun talking about this. All right, let's say our goodbyes now. Let people know where they can find us. So let's start with you, Paige.
I used to do a podcast called Level 7 Access about like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and like Marvel stuff. It's still up. We're on a hiatus right now because the world is on fire. So we're dealing with that. So we will come back to that one day. My Blue Sky handle, I think it's just Paige_Branson, or it's Paige Branson. I never remember what it is. But you can find me on Blue Sky right now.
You're great at marketing, Paige.
I'm so good. I'm so good at it.
Branding, I should say. Annie?
You can find me on YouTube at Lady Romana's Tea Time, and I just made a website, so that's new. It's up. It's mothandmoonlight.com.
Listener?
You can find me on the Flopcast, which is a ridiculous pop culture podcast mainly about 80s stuff that I do with my husband Kevin. And best place to reach me is Instagram, where I am Felicity Flops, all one word.
And Assad.
And mainly on the Police Box in a Junkyard podcast. Like and subscribe.
All right, Paige, Annie, Felicity, and Assad, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's it for talking about shows that were gone too soon. What did you think about this episode? What did you think about our prior episode talking about shows gone too soon? Are there some of your favorites that we still haven't talked about? You can let us know in a whole bunch of different ways. One way is to email us at everything@42cast.com. Another way is to go to our website, 42cast.com, and leave us a message on any episode there. You can also go to our Facebook, facebook.com/42cast, or you can go on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, or Threads @42cast and leave us a message in any of those places. You can also give us a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice. With Apple Podcasts, we know that the more reviews we get, the higher we show up in searches. So if you have an Apple account, and if you haven't done so yet, we'd really appreciate if you would leave us a review. You can help out the show and all the shows on the ESO Network by supporting the ESO Network Patreon. You can find that at patreon.com/ESO Network. There are different perks for different tiers. You get early access to episodes of some shows, you can get exclusive access to episodes of some shows, and you can get access to a whole exclusive ESO Network podcast only available to patrons. So if you have the funds to contribute, and if you would like to do so, we would greatly appreciate it. Nothing new to report on either Time Streams or Legendary Forces. They both remain in hiatus, but it is still on my to-do list to get those off of hiatus this year. I have nothing new to report in con news. I probably will attend Chicago TARDIS this year, but due to financial reasons, I probably will not attend any other cons this year. In watch news, Beth and I are continuing to watch the rebooted Animaniacs. We're about midway through the 3rd season, which was the final season. I think the show has definitely picked up. It doesn't feel as forced anymore. I still question reducing everything to just the Warner Brothers and Pinky and the Brain. I do miss a lot of the old side characters that they got rid of, and the few new side characters that they've added I think are universally awful. Now, thankfully, they don't have segments for those new characters that often, but when they do, I always question why they even bothered, because they're all atrocious. And bringing back one of the other classic ones, I think, would have been a better idea. I finished watching Pluribus. I liked the show. I don't think it's as good as the hype would have you believe. I think there are some very big core problems to the concept. And I do think stretching it into a 2nd season, I'm kind of just boggling at how that's going to work, because I feel like this show can't have more than another couple of episodes in it. So I'm going to be interested to see how they even pull off a season 2. But I definitely think that they shouldn't even try to go for a season 3, that they should just have season 2 wrap up the story that they want to tell. And for good or bad. I mean, I thought that maybe the show would end with season 1 and just everyone gets converted into the hive mind and it's just a downbeat ending. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But whatever the ending is, I think the show can't really sustain more than a 2nd season, because it's going to become too tired. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it goes there. We finished Dune Prophecy. It's my typical problems with Kevin J. Anderson's writing. I feel like he doesn't know the source material for Dune all that well. He has a lot of continuity errors that if you actually read the Frank Herbert books, you would understand. He also has this problem with having everything happen all at the same time and kind of neglecting the idea that these stories span thousands of years, and so technology is supposed to be a progression. So you shouldn't take things that existed in the later Frank Herbert books and put them in stories that took place thousands of years prior, because those were things that clearly were developed even after the original Dune book within the technology of that time, and that's annoying. But also contrived things like, it's not like the Bene Gesserit developed the voice over generations of subtle manipulations and learning how to manipulate more powerfully. It's one person at a crisis moment uses the voice and then teaches, they develop the voice like that, and then they teach. It's like this weird contrived way of just like, all of this happens just because, rather than Frank Herbert's approach, which was very much like, things evolve over time, and we have to understand the way that like science and human development and ecology and politics and all these things interact, and that's how these developments happen. And it's just, yeah. Anyway, but the Dune concept is strong enough that I still enjoyed watching the show. It's just full of a lot of the annoying Kevin J. Anderson stuff where I think he screws up the prequels so badly. The 2 books that he wrote that I think were the best were the ones that he wrote that actually take place in the future, after the books that Frank Herbert wrote. all the prequels that he wrote, and I haven't read them all. I haven't read the ones, for instance, that Dune Prophecy adapts, but I read maybe his first 8 or 9 prequels that he wrote. The first 3 were actually pretty good, even though they did have some continuity errors that annoyed me. Whereas just like, if you just read the first book, you know that's not true. But it seems like now it's just word count for paycheck kind of stuff, and they're not even very well written, and they're not particularly good. But anyway, the Dune concept is strong enough that I still found the show engaging, but it's problematic. It's got a lot of issues. Damning with faint praise. Also watching Shrinking, which is a very raunchy show. It's typically not the kind of thing that I would watch just because there's a lot of kind of gross and off-putting humor in it, but there's enough actual genuine humor. And really, the reason I'm watching this for Harrison Ford. Like, Harrison Ford doing a comedy is worth the price of admission. Watching Murderbot. Murderbot himself, his internal dialogue is hilarious. The plot and the other characters are all awful. Like, I mean, they created characters that you want to all die horrible deaths, and they don't make it fun, though. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm hoping by the end of the season they all die, but they're really, really annoying, really difficult to take, and the plot's really basic. There are only 2 more episodes left. I don't know if they can pick this thing up and make it interesting in the last 2 episodes. I will say, if you watch Murderbot and you watch the first 2 episodes and you're like, oh my god, this is atrocious, it does get better with the 3rd episode, and so it's kind of in sort of like a middling stance now. But yeah, I don't know. I question the whole writing of this series, because other than the dialogue from Murderbot himself, it's not very good. And also watching Fallout Season 2. Fallout, of course, remains amazing. Really enjoy it, having a lot of fun. I'm fascinated by the world. We'll definitely do a Fallout Season 2 episode because of how much I enjoy that show. And started Wonder Man. Just watched the first episode at this point. I found the first episode very dry. They put a hook at the end of the first episode, which kind of promises that the rest of it's going to be better, but so far it's like, yeah, there's a couple things I kind of chuckled at, very low-key, but so far, as a character, Simon's not interesting, and the situations he's in just seem very sort of slice of life, not very exciting kind of stuff. And it's just like, all right, let's get to an actual plot somewhere. But I figure over 8 episodes, they're definitely going to develop all that. So we'll see. We'll see how Wonder Man goes. All right, that's a wrap for this week. Join us back next week when Peter Cullen will not be joining us. And until then, this is Nathan signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast, copyright 2026. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network. And now for some outtakes. I love the fact that Eric took my suggestion on a name for his podcast, so. He was like, what should I call this show? And I'm like, you already have a podcast called the Video Junkyard Podcast. So if you're doing a Doctor Who show, why don't you call it the Police Box in a Junkyard Podcast? It makes perfect sense. Back to the very first Doctor Who story. And he's like, oh, brilliant. But yeah, guys, this was a lot of fun. Like I say, I have so many from when I was a kid. I've got them from when I was a teen, because I watched every one-hit wonder on Fox, like pretty much. That was like gone on a season, gone tomorrow, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it was just like...
I feel like my heyday was after Lost, when they tried to do a bunch of high concept shows like that, and I watched most of them. And I don't think any of them lasted beyond. I was really, when Lost was like in its heyday, I was really into it, and how how complicated it was. So actually, the third show I was going to do kind of a puzzle box show with a twist, which is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, the more recent American, or is a BBC America co-production.
Yeah.
First season is near perfect. The second season I liked, but I don't remember as much about. And the main reason, I mean, it came to a it concluded the story of the second season. The main reason I wanted to have more seasons is because my favorite character on the show ends the second season in kind of an uncomfortable place, and I really wanted that character to get a happy ending. That was Bart, the holistic assassin, who is I've never seen another character like Bart. Bart was basically raised up. She's never been exposed to like society. And while that's kind of a trope of a character, just the way she interacts with other people is strange and delightful and very violent.
I feel like streaming services have created a disproportionate number of these. Because, like, I could have also talked about Paper Girls or The Peripheral.
Yeah,
which are
Paper
both
Girls,
really good one-season shows that should have continued, both on cliffhangers, where it's like, give me more of the show. And Amazon's just like, we didn't get the views we wanted after like 2 or 3 weeks, so we're canceling
there was a Netflix one-season show that like had such a big impact on me that it altered the kind of fiction that I read and listen to, which was Archive 81.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
I think it's still available on Netflix. It's horror basically, and I'm not usually into horror, but it's got everything. It's got cults and time travel and other dimensions and all sorts, and a demon and all sorts of stuff.
Problem is, once I know that it lasted one season and then it didn't go any further, then you're kind of like less motivated. I mean, I saw the first episode of Peripheral, and then I saw that it just kind of ended after one season. It's not like this is our story, so we're ending it here. So, and then it's like, should I bother? There's so much to watch.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, it's definitely, but I feel like if it's interesting, I want to see it. And if everybody was talking about it's like Peripheral, everybody was talking about it. So I'm like, even though I knew before I even went into it that it was canceled, I was like, I want to see what everybody was talking about. So I still watched it, even though it was an unsatisfying ending. Although at least they did a better job wrapping up for the season than Paper Girls, which left on an actual cliffhanger that I'm still angry about.
Yeah. I mean, if you're inclined to read the comic book, it is really good, and it does tell a whole story.
Like, I never saw the one season of Y, The Last Man, that they made.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of things that I liked about it, and I had read the comic as well.
Comic.
I mean, I like Brian K. Vaughan does great stuff. Both of them were based on his work.
Yeah, well, I think the one. What was the other one about the superhero one that he did that also was like
Ex Machina?
The way that ended, I was so annoyed that I just had to give away my entire collection. I said, no, I'm not
that ending was really wrong. Was really depressing. But yeah, on the whole, I really liked that one as well. These were all things that my husband is the comic book reader, and I'm not traditionally, but these were whatever when he recommends something to me, I go for it, and I really liked Brian K. Vaughan's stuff. And
the Clevelander. So
cool.
That's why there's random references.
One day when I have the time to read, I'll read all the books and comics and everything that I. That's my problem is I don't have time to read.
If you weren't doing a podcast every week,
right? Or I stop doing my podcast or something. It might give me the time, but I know that would get eaten up with some chore or something rather than.
Hey, is anyone watching? Is anyone watching Pluribus on Apple TV?
Not
yet. It's
I don't like watching things week.
I won't pass judgment. Yeah.
I wait until a season is dropped, and then I watch like 3, 2 or 3 at a time.
I still like watching.
I've always watched Vince Gilligan shows, like going all the way back to the X-Files. Was like episode by episode by episode, week by week by week. Like, so I'm like, I'm in it. Like, I love Pluribus so much.
Me too. We haven't seen the most recent, but
okay.
So my husband watched Breaking Bad, and I didn't, and he thought it would be too violent for me. But then we watched Better Call Saul together. So I'm like, Rhea Seehorn needs her own show, and everyone was like, "Yes, Vince Gilligan is making a show for her, and this is that show."
She needs a billion awards, every single award.
Amazing. And it's one of those shows that is my cup of tea because it's about, human versus, again, human identity.
And it is a slow burn. I see that that's like a criticism that people are landing on the show, that it's like a little slow. But if you're not paying attention, then yeah, it's going to be a little like meandering and slow if you're not actually locked in, actually paying attention to what characters are saying and how they're feeling in the moment, and then thinking about what happened in previous episodes.
I also thought, I think the first season, the first episode, I was on the edge of my seat. So I don't think that was that was slow paced at all.
Yeah. So. There's so many little dialogue moments during the second and like third episodes coming, that, and definitely the fourth too, that make you go back to certain lines in the first and like in the second go, oh, okay, that's why that character felt that way and said XYZ.
Yeah, Apple TV hitting it out of the park again with another science fiction show, because I love Severance so much.
I also love Severance.
I've really enjoyed For All Mankind, and I'm watching Silo now, which is also really, really good. I was not happy
out
with
on both of those.
Foundation. I thought that was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I hear it gets better, but I haven't gone back.
Let me say this, season 3 is better because they got rid of David
yeah.
Goyer, who doesn't know how to write. The problem is it becomes very brutal towards children in a way that's kind of gross in my mind, and made Beth, Beth will rage quit anything where it's like, we actually literally see an infant dissolve in season 3, where it's murdered, and but there was other violence against children earlier in the season where it was so it's it is better. I still don't think it's good. It's very random and Deus Ex Machina kind of thing, and it's when you think about Asimov and how Asimov likes to make things logical, to me, it's such a problem that it's so random in the show where they'll just pull out, we have this magic box that can enfold the entire population of a planet in a second, and transport them to another place safely. And it's just you didn't establish this, you didn't say they had this technology or anything. You just magically pulled this out as a way to save everybody in season 2. It has nothing to do with the books that it's supposed to be based on, other than the name. And it's you can tell the Dune envy in the writing, where they're we really would rather be writing Dune, but we don't have the license to that, so we're going to call it Foundation and basically write something vaguely Dune-like, but it's still, I don't feel even good enough to call Dune.
I know that in the first season, and maybe I already mentioned this, the episode that made me give up was when the planet gets invaded, the Foundation gets invaded, and the invaders are wandering around and randomly shooting people, but they're actually looking for somebody that they don't know who that person is, but they're still randomly shooting people, and it's okay.
Yeah, the person we're looking for, you killed them 5 bodies ago.
I don't know how David Goyer wrote Batman Begins and the original Blade, but everything he's written other than those 2 things, I feel has been pretty. I mean, Dark Knight is okay. Most people like Dark Knight better than Batman Begins. I think Batman Begins is the better script. But fine, Dark Knight's also good. Everything else the man has ever written other than Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and the original Blade is awful. Awful. I don't know how he keeps getting work, but I think he's just milking those 3 successes in his past to just get.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.